everyone. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. We're practicing social distancing here at Another View, so I'm in the studio alone, and the Roundtable Pundits are joining us from the comfort of their homes. It will be interesting moderating a conversation of four intelligent and opinionated women without being able to see them. But we soldier on. Alvean Lyons, Daun Hester, Pretlow and Allison Moore are virtually in the house. We'll check on their stay-at-home experiences, and they will share advice from each of their professions that may help you to stay focused while you stay at home. Stay with us. Another View will be right back after this news from NPR.
Discussing today's topics from an African-American perspective, this is Another View.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. I hope you and your family are safe and well as you do your part to help yourself and our community by staying at home. If you've been paying attention to the news this week, you've heard that while COVID-19 does not discriminate and is affecting all of us, in some communities, African Americans are being hit pretty hard. In fact, in places like Louisiana and Chicago, the majority of coronavirus deaths are African Americans. Now, we don't want that to happen to us here in Virginia, and particularly in our area. It's important that we stay constantly in touch with our underserved communities. And I want to start today's show by playing a message that News 3 anchor and managing editor Barbara Sierra recorded for a community that she knows intimately, our public housing community.
Hello, I'm Barbara Sierra. As many of you know, I grew up living in public housing, so it's with that in mind, I'm praying that you and your family are doing well and staying safe during this coronavirus pandemic. This is the time to come together as a community and do your part to stop the spread of COVID-19 and follow the governor's mandate, stay home. Okay, that means staying away from people who don't live under your roof. It's that serious. When you do go out, keep a space of about 6 feet between you and the next person, and no matter how much those kids complain, no play dates. Take them for a walk or out to play, but just not with other children. Do not visit your neighbor. I know it's tempting. Do not come in contact with anyone who doesn't live with you. Let's keep Rona on check, right? Okay, keep in touch by phone or through social media if you can. And as much as you might feel cooped up, no more gatherings, games on the basketball court, or going to parties. It's not worth your health. And a reminder, it's really important for you and your family to wash those hands, make it fun, do it with your favorite song or gospel tune. And finally, if you need help with food, homeschooling, employment, and most of all, if you feel some kind of way, call 211 Virginia. It's important to protect your health as well as your mental health and your spirit. Do this for yourself, for your family, and hopefully soon you can be out on the front stoop making new memories. Wishing you good health and hope. Be safe out there.
And that was a message from News 3 anchor Barbara Sierra, who's also the managing editor at WTKR News 3. And in full disclosure, I am the former chair of the Board of Commissioners, Norfolk Redevelopment and Housing, and I work with the City of Norfolk and NRHA on community engagement efforts for public housing residents. So that was one of the messages that we prepared to help our community stay safe. I'm sure our roundtable pundits have a lot to say about coronavirus and about staying at home. So let's meet them. She's Virginia's relationship expert and host of The Lyons Den, heard on WHOV-FM, Ms. Alvean Lyons. Hi, Alvean.
Hey, everybody. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So glad to hear your voice. She's the one to figure out how the rest of the fiscal year shakes out for the city of Norfolk, City Treasurer Daun Hester. Hey, Daun, how you doing?
I'm great.
Good to hear from you. She's still teaching, but now it's online. Pretlow of Norfolk State University. How are you, Carol?
Wonderful and bored.
Oh, we'll talk about that in just a moment. And she's an entrepreneur and comedian, Ms. Allison Moore. Hey, Allison.
Hey, y'all. Hey.
How you doing?
I've had some good days.
Okay, Allison. Now I have to tell you, you ladies, that Allison put out a e-blast today. She's been really doing a lot of promotion of her comedy, and especially in working with companies and helping them to add a little levity, add some camaraderie, and some ways for people to stay together during this crisis. But she put together this email today, and she talked about her schedule. Allison, tell us about your schedule now that you are homeschooling.
I feel like my kids say that I got them on night school. Because at first, when it all went down, I have three different children, of course, but I have three children in three different grades. And it was really hard for me. I tried to keep up, get up in the morning, have them at school at 7 o'clock. It was just rough because I found myself losing all of my good brain cell time for my own business. And I just realized that I couldn't keep up in a way in which the school was doing. So I allowed them to, and they stay up late, and it just was a mess. So I let them, they stay up, and then I don't let them, they get up around 10 or 11 o'clock. So that's when we start our school. I'll do 3 to 4 hours a day in the middle of the day, but it allows me because I'm already up at 6. So I'm able to work in a quiet house from about 6 to 10. And that's where I just encourage my followers and fans to find a time creatively that works best in their house when their homes are quiet so that they can think and focus. Because people think, I hear a lot of employers and different people still having the same demands of their employees or their team members. Well, y'all are home now, but I'm like, we almost have less time now that we're at home and everybody's stuck in the house. And so it's just ways that I try to promote or encourage people to think differently or around the clock. So then after my middle of the day time with the kids in homeschool, then I'll go probably from about between 3 and 6, anywhere around that time, to do stuff like fix dinner, clean up, do whatever, that kind of thing, watch a little TV, maybe talk on the phone to a friend. And I take a nap. I'm tapping out, I'm taking me a nap, resetting, and then around 6 to 10 p.m., I'll come back out and do some more work and things. And those are maybe easier tasks that need to be done, but that I don't have to, shut down, y'all, come on now, I gotta. It's stuff that I kind of plan my tasks based on what the flow of the household is. And it's been working for me.
So it's been working for you. That's good. Alvean, what's your typical day like now?
Oh, my goodness. Allison is so spot on about the fact that you actually end up with less time at home than you do when you're at work. And part of that is because everybody thinks that they either have to prove that they're working, so they engage twice as much as they were engaging before, or the fact that because you are home, it's perceived that there is not as much work to do. So I find that my day, I have yet to be able to find a really effective schedule, so to speak, because we're working on projects, and some of my projects are actually international. So I'm also working across time zones as well. So I'm finding my days starting earlier and it's ending later. I'm getting more emails and more text messages and phone calls. What I will say is this, though, in terms of the carving out something that works for you, every single day faithfully, unless it is pouring rain, my husband and I go out for about a 3-mile walk, which really helps me decompress from the intensity of the constant. Because you know that I do mental health work too. So I'm also dealing with people who are, struggling with some of the anxiety, the depression, the fears, the crisis, all of that, the support for some, single mothers, the list goes on and on. So being able to step away from that each day, and sometimes we'll do it twice during the day, is the only thing that I can honestly say to you is part of my schedule, so to speak, as a constant. We normally do at lunchtime, and we do one somewhere around dinner time or after dinner time. But that's it. Everything else is so fluid because of technology.
And Daun, when we were talking a little bit earlier, you said that you've been doing more exercising too.
Yes, and I can't hear a thing that Alvy's saying. So
What Alvean was saying, she was talking about taking a walk for 3 hours, she and her husband, during 3 hours, 3 miles, rather,
I was
a
getting
day.
ready to say 3 hours.
No,
My
3 miles, 3 miles a day, so that she can clear her head, because her schedule is sometimes early, sometimes late, because she's working internationally as well as in across time zones.
Oh, wow. Yeah, she does everything. But yes, I've been walking. I'm walking in the morning, walking in the evening, and for that quiet time. So, you can kind of hear what the Lord is trying to tell you to do and helping you to think straight. Because, you're still trying to keep your business going. And
Right.
So for me, that's the city and still trying to collect when we know that taxpayers, especially our small businesses, are having challenges and coming up with ways to, try to support them in those efforts. And so, but doing that, and, I'm remotely working every day in the office once a week, more if necessary, but I'm just trying to take care of my staff and take care of us at home. But I'm trying to stay away from people as much as possible. If I have to go out, it's one day a week. I plan it all with my mask on and take care of business and then come on back home. And yes, nobody comes over here to visit.
Yeah.
So I was glad that to hear that message, because that's so important, because you don't know who other people have been around.
Absolutely. And by the way, before I take another comment or whatever, Daun, we extend to you our love in the passing of your mom recently, and we're just sorry that we haven't been able to get together to give you one of our Another View hugs, but we've been thinking about you, and we love you. So
thank you.
Definitely. So, Carol, what is your teaching or on a daily basis? What's your day like?
That's what you call it.
What does that mean?
It means that I actually miss, and I'm sure everybody has people they miss, but I miss my students. They're like my children. And I miss the face-to-face time that I have with them, because I can tell when I'm in the classroom by facial expressions, by body language, by other things other than what they are emailing and sending me as to their understanding of particular problems and their approaches and their textbook stuff. I can tell, and a lot of times a student is hesitant about telling or is hesitant about asking questions. And I can tell that, so I get to talk to them after class and say, look, what's going on? Did you understand what was happening? Let's talk. Those moments I miss a lot. And also the interaction in class. One of my favorite classes is modern political theory. And there was a point during the semester that they got so engaged, I had to ask them, I said, could you let me say something? After all, I'm supposed to be teaching this class. But I love their enthusiasm, and I miss that. And while I'm getting responses online, and it's not the same. It really isn't. The other side of it is, even with a course like modern political theory or constitutional law, the understanding of contemporary events. So when I get up in the morning and I look at the news shows, but I also am reading the Washington Post and the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, I will say to them, okay, did you see the Times this morning? Based on what you know now, what would your response be? And what do we as political activists have to do? And so I miss those moments.
So, Carol, you live by yourself, too. Do you notice a difference now that there's, this social distancing, or is that part of it kind of normal for you?
It's part of, it's partially normal, partially not. It is not normal that I walk down on Granby Street and I don't see anybody. And the few people I do are away, and they'll wave, but the interaction that I have with business people, and of course, you know, I'm a mall addict with Barnes & Noble. This is not an ad, but it is a shout out to them. And I miss that because I learned from them, from the everyday interactions, the things that I can be addressing in constitutional law or modern political theory. I learned that. Now, when the day ends, I look forward to being by myself. I don't particularly encourage people to visit.
Right.
I don't, even my close friends, I'm like, please don't visit me. I love you, but give me some alone time. So, you know, it's different, but the alone time I'm used to.
Yeah. So I want to talk to each of you a little bit about your individual professions and some of the advice that you would give to our listeners in terms of navigating the coronavirus pandemic, or in terms of what you need to be thinking about now, because we are going to come out of this. And at some point we will be getting back to whatever our new normal is. And there may be some things that we need to think about. And Daun, I want to start with you, because I know that it's probably very tempting for people, especially, you know, in today's Washington Post, 6.6 million Americans filed for unemployment last week alone. So bringing the pandemic total to over 17 million people who have applied for unemployment, whose businesses have shut down and so forth, which means that the taxes that you normally would be collecting and so forth will not be coming in right now. But for people who can continue to pay their taxes and so forth, what do you say to them? What do people need to be thinking about in terms of those obligations?
Well, I'm grateful that in the city of Norfolk that we have removed penalty and interest for taxes that are not paid by the due date.
Okay.
So if you live in the city of Norfolk, you have until before August 2nd, so 11:59 p.m. on August the 1st, you need to pay your taxes without penalty and interest, as best you can. The other thing that I suggest, because, you know, we can't change due dates, we can't reduce taxes, but not adding that penalty and interest because people are not able to pay, it gives you extra time. Because we just went through, real estate was due on this past March 31st, and then bills are going out. They have to go out because by law they have to, so you'll be getting your bill from all the localities. And so don't fret about them. Just know that they are there because you knew they were coming. If you have a little bit, make a partial payment. If you can't pay it in full, if you don't have anything, we understand that too. But communication is key. We are, you know, all hopeful that it's going to be over sooner rather than later, and people will be getting back to work. And so that's why the city extended it until August the 2nd. But the other thing is that in Norfolk, citizens, if they pay online, they were paying their own convenience fees for access to be able to pay online. The city is now covering that cost. So you can use a card to pay if you choose to do that, you know, so that you don't get hit with that penalty and interest after August the 2nd. And so I think that's great, you know, for your e-checks and using your cards. So those are the couple of things that we put in place. We are trying to push people more to asking us questions online. And so for all of the listeners in other municipalities, check your city's website and your treasurer's website to see what options they have provided. I know Virginia Beach did something. You know, every city is doing something different based on what they have the ability to do. But we all know that cities operate on the taxes that come in. And so spread it out, send a little bit. You can't pay a partial payment online, so you have to mail in a check or a money order. But that will help you from getting so deep in the hole. And that's, you know, one thing I tell people all the time. All we want is your taxes. We don't want the penalty and interest. So you have an extension through the summer because taxes are due June 5th. So you have until August, to get it in.
To get that in. And that's
Right.
August 2nd is the date?
Well, get it in before August 2nd.
Before August 2nd. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And don't stress about it. And as life hits you, you still need to call the treasurer's office, or in this case, it's better to email the office, because we are working short staff, because we're trying to keep our people safe too. Email the office, and then someone will get in touch with you in a couple days. And if you need to set up a payment plan, then we'll do that. It's the same thing for our small businesses, especially our restaurants. If you closed because you knew you had to, and financially that was the best thing for you to do, you still need to file your reports monthly, and this is across the region. Everybody in our small businesses still need to file, but you get the ability to pay. And most of us are going to do payment plans. We were doing payment plans anyway for people who needed that option to get their bills paid. And so just communicate, always communicate with not only just the treasurer's office, but everybody that you owe, whether it's credit cards, whether it's mortgage, whether it's a car payment. Make sure you communicate. And when you figure out what little bit of money you have, even if it's just $25 that you can do to 1, 2, 3, 4 places, then go ahead and give that, so that they can see that you are trying to honor your commitment until you're able to get things back together again.
Right. Okay, Allison, from an entrepreneurial perspective, what should you be doing right now?
Being creative. That's what I've had to do, because the majority of my business was doing stand-up comedy or speaking or going into corporations and doing employee morale boosting or engagement type of services. Then obviously you can imagine the end of February, the 1st of March, every day I was starting to get anxiety from checking my emails because people were just canceling left and right. And so I had to think quickly about what to do next so that I could pivot. And so I just developed this thought process of ways that you can take what you already do or whatever your experiences are, things that you do naturally, kind of combining that. It's like, if I think in terms of food, it's kind of like, what can we do with the ingredients that we have and fix a different type of dish? And so I've just encouraged people to figure out what their customers or their clients or their audience's new COVID-19 induced pain point is, right? So like all small businesses and entrepreneurs, whoever their customers and their clients are, they were solving a problem for somebody. But now COVID-19 has completely changed things for everybody. So for me, for example, whoever thinks of me in their customer profile or as their avatar, my new COVID-19 induced pain point is homeschooling. So anybody who has a service or whatever that I was once a customer to, it would behoove them to try to think of new ways that they can take what they can do and serve me in this new place that I'm at, to keep me close, keep me as an audience, to keep me as a customer, to keep themselves relevant, so that when things change again, I'll still be there and it won't be like, okay, well, we're all back. I don't know. I hope that makes sense. But so like for me, I know a lot of my customers, I have a lot of my clientele is middle-aged women. Men like me too, young people like me too, but because I'm a clean comedian, and that's on like my B2C, my consumer, because I'm a clean comedian, younger people, they're not necessarily checking for a clean comedian. They don't care one way or the other. They just want funny. But mature and more mature audience may say, I really love to laugh, but I want it to be clean. So then those people are affected a little bit differently, and therefore I've tried to pivot some of the things that I do. So I started to write. I've started to offer some online things, kind of going to where they are in how COVID-19 has affected them. So ultimately, I'm just encouraging, and what I've been doing is trying to think of new creative ways that I can still reach my customers, still reach my audience for my businesses. I reached out to them to say, hey, listen, I can do an online training, because those businesses that once invested in bringing in a speaker, then that type of, that's important to them, but they can't do that anymore. Now their COVID-19 pain point is they can't bring their employees together. They can't do morale boosting and engagement. But because it was important to them, but now they can't bring their people together, something that I can do is do an online training. Or I can put a video together and send to them that they can send to their employees to still try to boost morale. Those who are teleworking and things like that, they would like to get an email with some positivity or some laughter. So I've been just really trying to think as creatively as possible so that I don't have to come and ask, can I live with one of y'all?
No, we don't want you to have to do that. If you're
Y'all
just
had to lift the social distancing ban for a sister, because I'm like, oh.
If you're just joining us, we're talking about the coronavirus pandemic with the Another View Roundtable. Relationship expert Alvean Lyons, Norfolk City Treasurer Daun Hester, political science professor Carol Pretlow, and comedian and entrepreneur Allison Moore. Carol, teaching online, some tips, some ideas. What do you want to tell people that they should be thinking about as they're learning online?
Well, try to personalize it, and it depends on the subject. So, for example, if I am looking, well, Dawn, you are more of a professional in this than I am. If I'm looking at the national budget and I'm looking at the expenditures that have to be made because of the virus, I will ask students, what is your advice? What adjustments do you think have to be made? And how do you sell this to the public or explain it to the public? So what I say is baseline information, you can go on the internet or any textbook and find that. But it's the analytical process that makes it fascinating and keeps you, as my former president would say, keeps you up at night, because this is what you're thinking. Wow, what does this mean? How does it apply? How can I understand this and help someone else understand it better? Mm-hmm. In that respect, I think this is a good thing, and I don't mean health-wise, of course. This is a horrible situation to be in. But I think by doing the teaching online, it's helping students to think creatively and helping me to think creatively, too, because I'm a textbook person, a reader, a hold it in my hand type of person in terms of learning. But this teaches us to think outside the box. So,
Carol, how easy or difficult was it to make the transition to your classes online?
It is very difficult because obviously the printed word, and say if I'm talking about legislation being passed through Congress, or if I'm looking at an interpretation from the Supreme Court, that's pretty easy, you know. But it is the personal interactions and what does this mean for you personally that is difficult. For example, I teach a course in media law, and I didn't realize how difficult it was going to be online, because I asked each student to pick a subject area that if they were a reporter, they would investigate. And then from there, I was going to ask them to come up with the questions. Then from there, what does this mean in terms of free speech? But that's easy to do in the classroom. When I get 40 emails and trying to respond to not only the subject matter, but to explain to them how grammar and punctuation and all of that is important, that's difficult because I'm basically a one-on-one type of teacher, and now I'm forced to think of it in group, and this is difficult for me.
I got you. So, Alvean, when you think about your mental health and relationships, that's your area of expertise. What are you telling folks? What do they need to think about?
So you know I love alliterations. So there are two things that I've really been talking to people about. It's connection, creativity, and intimacy, innovation. And what I mean by both of those things is that we have to find new ways to connect with those that we care about, that are important parts of our lives that we are not able to be with. It's important to recognize that being physically distant is not the same thing as being emotionally disengaged. And sometimes when we're not with someone physically, we interpret that as not being engaged with them emotionally. But the truth is, I deal with, of course, I work with married couples also. I know lots of couples who are physically in the same place, but emotionally 1,000 miles away from each other. So it's the redefining meaning of what it means to be connected or to be separate. What do those things really mean? And then in terms of an intimacy innovation, that the fact that you're in the same house all day long, particularly if you and your partner are in the same house, it's really easy to get on each other's nerves. It is really easy. There's only but so far you can go. And sometimes in relationships, going to work each day is actually a break for the relationship, and a break in a healthy kind of way, that you've got outside things that you're doing. It gives you fresh things to talk about when you're with each other. So not having that in your life, there's really no quote unquote balance between when we're together and when we're apart. Mm-hmm. It means that we have to get creative about ensuring that we are not stressing the intimacy that exists inside of our relationship, that we are not oversaturating each other with our constant physical togetherness, but that we still give room for intentionally connecting versus intentionally disconnecting. So sometimes when I'm doing work, my husband's downstairs and I'm upstairs on purpose, so that we are both in different zones. So when we come back together, it's kind of like I haven't seen you in a while. Right. And it reminds me that I'm glad to see your face. But if we sit in the same place all day long, it doesn't always feel the same. So it's just these little things that we have to be mindful about as we are navigating a new normal in relationship. And I will say this, and then I'll pause, is the other thing is we also have to give each other grace, because no one anticipated this. So how you like to do things, how I like to do things, how much time I need to breathe, how much time you need to breathe. We are different human beings, and we cannot judge each other for the fact that we may have different needs inside of this season. So there's a measure of grace that we have to provide for each other, because how we recharge may be different. And expecting your partner or your kids to recharge exactly the same way you do is an unwise proposition. Mm-hmm. We've got to give each other room to be who we naturally are in a space where we are forced to exist together.
I don't know about you ladies, but this week for the first time, I actually hit the coronavirus wall, as I call it. I mean, the overload. I just became completely overloaded with things, and I was laughing because last night there was a conference call with BET and the NAACP, National NAACP, and Nancy Pelosi was on the call, and several other Congress people and senators, and they were talking about what was happening with the Black community. And I had asked Lisa, our producer, if she could listen in, because I just couldn't deal with it. And then I felt guilty for not listening, so I got on the call anyway. But my point is, have you hit a wall? I mean, between that and Zoom meetings, I am about to lose my mind. I mean, it just feels like there's just such an intensity right now. And Alvean, what are some of the things we can do besides taking a walk? Because I've started doing that, but some other things that we can do when we feel like we're just overwhelmed with it.
Okay. So you're absolutely right. That wall that we hit, it can also be increased by what it is that we're taking in. So I will also say that I happen to be a political junkie. So I love the news. This week, prior to Resurrection Sunday, my fasting is actually from the news. And it's not to be uninformed. I actually read, so let me give clarification. I actually read whatever the updates are from the CDC and the White House and so on and so forth, and the World Health Organization, just so that I'm informed. But there is a difference between 24-hour news cycle of the death ticker going up every single, practically every minute of every day while you're watching. It has an impact on your psyche, and the walls start to feel like they're closing in, and you don't feel like you have a lot of control over what's happening. So the psychological impact of that can be significant, especially for people who suffer from depression and anxiety. So being mindful of your saturation levels is really important in taking care and protecting your mental health in a time like this. That doesn't mean that let's be ignorant to the realities or let's just put our head in the sand and pretend that this thing is not real. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying be a good steward over how saturated you allow yourself to be. So sometimes it means you need to disengage from some of that in order to be in a healthier personal space so that the people who have to share physical space with you inside of your home are able to share that space with the best version of yourself. And when you are inundated with concern, fear, powerlessness, worry for others, it is hard for you to be the best version of you. So I am just saying that we've got to be good stewards over our own mental health in order to be better partners and family members inside of the spaces that we have to share.
Right. So I have a question for you ladies, because, the news broke this week, as we all know, that in some communities, African Americans are disproportionately dying from COVID-19. And as a matter of fact, we have an entire show set up to talk about this on next Thursday's show. But when the news broke, there was some folks on social media and just in general conversations in the community where people just said, shh, don't tell that this is what's happening to Black folks, because they were saying that if the disease is painted as a Black disease, quote unquote, that the help will stop coming, particularly to our community. Do you think that that is paranoia, or are they speaking truth to power? Dawn.
I was going to say, who you asking that of?
I'm asking you first.
I think that it's some of both. Because as people of color, we know that we have been marginalized. Our issues have been pushed to the side. And, we're told that, we're going to do this for you and we're going to do that for you. And then when people get in positions to be able to do things, you don't see the results. But then we also know that as a people, we are overweight, we are diabetic, we are not eating healthy, we are not doing some things that would help our health mentally and physically, so that we wouldn't have the pre-existing conditions that will put us in these situations that could harm us and hurt us even more. Mm-hmm. But we also know that in our communities, just like we have food deserts, yes, we have health deserts. We also know that we don't have health care. And so, access to it without being burdened by debt. So I think it's another way of elevating the conversation that we've been having for a very long time that we have not gotten an end result for. Mm-hmm. But it's one that at this juncture where we are right now, that we need to take advantage of everything that we can get as it relates to how we do a better job going forward.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Allison, what is your thought as our millennial on the panel?
Well, on social media, when this all started to hit the fan, a lot of people were saying that Black people were exempt from the disease. Mm-hmm. So there was a lot of people looking like, watching when we started to hear the beginning cases, people getting confirmed and or passing away. People were like, "Were they Black?" And so then it totally changed. It educated a lot. It helped a lot of millennials see, okay, we are going to have to do some real research. We cannot depend on our friends on Instagram and Facebook to be feeding us news and statistics. And then I think now we're just at this place where we are willing to be vocal, and we are just seeing more and more how important it is for us to get out and vote, how important it is for us to watch more than the presidential campaigns so that we can pay attention. Now, I think more than ever, I feel like a lot of millennials are really, myself included, mm-hmm. we are really more aware of, the role of the governor. I'm like, oh, wow, he got a whole lot of power. And, or, how many things I've been watching Governor Northam every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I make the kids watch it at 2:00. That's our civics class. And
that's great.
You can ask me some questions. I'm ready. I'm like, ooh, wait till I get in the studio. But so I think for us, this is just a wake up, like for, I hate to speak for all millennials because there are some super sharp ones that have already been on it. And they tell me like, girl, please stop speaking on our behalf. But there are many of us who are like, oh, shoot, I wish I would have paid attention in school. But now that we're here, we understand, or we're seeing more. So I think that this is just a really good wake up call. I don't know how much I'm ready to weigh in on it. I got popcorn. I'm like, for real? That's what's been happening. Oh, that ain't right. We got to do better. Like, that's more my commentary. Oh, I don't like this.
Carol, what do you think?
Wow, it's a multiplicity of things because, first of all, when they talk about pre-existing conditions and the experiences, I'm not a medical expert, but I did understand that the healthcare needs of the Black community just didn't suddenly appear. Why didn't you guys start addressing these before now? Because maybe if you had been responsible and taken care of some of these problems, even partially, maybe the intense dynamic that we are experiencing now would have been alleviated somewhat. Not saying that it would have been totally avoided, but some of the ramifications would have been alleviated partially. So this should be a wake-up call to let's not let things pass. Let's deal with them. And I know it must be, I'm not an elected official, of course, it must be overwhelming problem after problem after problem, but that's what you signed up for. So let's address those. Now, for our community itself, I guess, as we've just been saying, as Allison just said, that we need to get out there and vote because we need to make people aware that we're out there, we're hearing, we're not going to forget the position that you took or didn't take. Hello, it's time to face your maker, so to speak.
Okay, Alvean, truth to power or paranoia?
No, I think that I would say that there much like the rest of our panel, there is a component of both that exists inside of this. I would definitely say that there's a reason to be a little nervous about the idea that it's predominantly people of color who are now in trouble, because it is true that we are often the least valued. As much as we to acknowledge that fact, even Tony Fauci, as in Anthony Fauci with the White House COVID response team, was saying that the data certainly points out the fact that there's a disproportionate representation of African Americans who are being profoundly impacted by COVID. And so while we cannot fix that tomorrow, and there are pieces that we hold personal responsibility for in terms of taking care of ourselves, our diet and our healthcare practices, and I'm not talking about healthcare as in the system, I'm talking about us going to see the doctor appropriately to stay on top of our own personal health. It leaves us more vulnerable. But you and I have had countless conversations where we have said that when America gets a cold, the Black community almost always ends up with pneumonia. And because whenever something happens, the most vulnerable are always spotlighted. And yet again, something this significant is spotlighting the most vulnerable among us.
You know, I saw an interview with a doctor who was saying that it's not a problem of an issue of race, it's an issue of racism in terms of the inequities in healthcare and so forth. Hopefully, listeners, you'll tune in next Thursday at noon, where we will have a robust discussion about what is happening in terms of healthcare inequities and how it is affecting the African American community in light of the pandemic. So we got about 9 minutes left. I want to hear from you guys. What is the thing that is making you the most crazy during this time? Okay, I'll start. All right, I got two things. I can't get my hair cut, and I can't soak my nails off. I tried, and the polish won't come off. So what is driving you all crazy as you deal with this pandemic? Let's start with Carol. Let's start with you this time.
Okay, well, I'll join you in the haircut thing because I look like a shaggy dog. I'm like, this is crazy. I am also frustrated because the informal time that sometimes I spend with my students at the mall, at Barnes and Noble, and just looking, window shopping. I can't window shop. This is crazy. And shopping online doesn't fill the bill. Okay. Those are the things.
Okay. Allison, what's driving you crazy? Besides your children.
No, that's it. You can't take that from me. That is my answer. But from a different, I have 2 teenagers and then I have a 6-year-old, a kindergartner. So wow. the impact of my kindergartner is the hardest because the older they can go get on their phone, they could be on social media. He can't. So that's really, really hard for me and for him because he's really, he needs attention. I mean, he's in kindergarten, so I can't just sit him in front of the TV all day. I can't sit him in front of the computer. And then in my neighborhood, these people are not, they need to hear Barbara. Sierra. Uh-huh. Yeah. I'm about to take that radio and replay it at their door because they're sending out their babies around here, and it's got me looking like I'm the bad parent because I won't let him go outside and play with these kids. And they don't understand social distancing. I'm like, you can yell out the window. So this is really frustrating.
So you have people in your neighborhood who are letting their kids play together?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Oh, that's not good.
It's about 10 of them. I'm like, Jesus, help, please.
Yeah, we keep trying to remind people, and we will say it over and over and over again. Stay within your family unit. And if you go outside, you can play with each other, but no play dates. This is not play date time because we don't know who's carrying the virus and you don't know who is spreading it. So we want to encourage people, please, stay within your family unit at this point. Daun, what's driving you crazy?
Just not being able to sit down and talk to my friends, face to face. And, been thinking about ways and seeing creative ways that people are getting together other than on Zoom. Just being able to look at them and make sure they're okay. And, I did a drive-by with my cousin. I just said, come to the door, let me look at your face. And, just so I can see you. And then, one of my elders that I hadn't seen, I did a drive-by. So I could just say, okay, so I seen you. I know you look okay. I feel better. I know you're okay. So that, personal interaction is really hard. Yeah. But other than that, I think for me that's it because, quite frankly, I'm enjoying the quiet that I'm forced to have. And so it's, especially at this time, losing Mom. So it's just giving me the peace to be able to process that.
And you and your husband have worked out a rhythm?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we're good. But because it hasn't he has shared me all of our married life publicly. Yeah. But then the last 7 years, he was one of the caregivers for my father and my mother. So he helped me in that vein. So just us having time to be together has been a blessing for us as we get to rediscover each other in this new life and new normal that we're trying to figure out how to live in. My yard looks really good.
Lots of yard work.
I've been doing a lot of yard work. It's coming right along.
Oh, gosh. Alvean, what's driving you crazy?
So I was really tossed up between 2 things. Okay, so one, I have a lot of people in my house during this lockdown. My son brought 2 of his college friends home that have been here since it began. Oh. So I've got 3 college boys. My girls are both home because one of my daughters, who happens to be married, yes, we all get married young and we stay married. So one of my daughters happens to be married, but her husband's in veterinary medicine and he's still part of the essential staff. So they can't be in the same house. So he's here. She's here. I'm sorry. Also, and their baby is here. So there are 8 of us in this house, not including the dogs. So I will say that the thing that gets me the most right now is my grocery bill. Like, the speed at which these people keep eating my food is like outrageous. Like, I love you people, but some of y'all need to consider a fast. Like, this is ridiculous. So, I mean, I'm so glad that everybody's here and they're safe, but it's an expensive venture to make sure that you don't starve the people that you're supposed to be keeping alive.
Oh, gosh. Okay. And what was the other thing?
So in full disclosure, and he could be mad at me if he wants to, trying to convince my 18-year-old son that his girlfriend still counts in social distancing has been torture.
Oh, wow.
We took his car away. He decided he was going to walk to go see her. Like, I mean, it was torture.
That young love.
He keeps saying he understands, but they will do anything to be able to just see each other for a few minutes. And I'm like, look, FaceTime is fine. You guys can FaceTime all night. I will not even harass you about it. But, this little, like, puppy love thing? Oh, my goodness.
Wow.
This stuff is stronger than Corona.
Wow.
Like, it really is.
So have all of you all done a FaceTime or a Zoom with other family members? Last weekend, we did one with friends, and it was surprisingly refreshing for me. And I was surprised because it was different from the work Zooms that we've been doing. We're it's all about business and so forth, but it was more of a social thing. Has anybody else done that?
Every Friday, 7:00.
Ah, so it's a standing meeting with the family.
It's standing. Family, well, this one is with the girls.
Oh, cool.
At 7 with the glass of whatever your drink is.
Right.
And we just catch up how the week went by. We've got one getting ready to be a grandma and all those kind of things. So, we just kind of catch up on each other so we can kind of, once again, see each other, make sure we're okay, and make sure everything is going all right.
That's fantastic. Anybody else doing that? Allison, are you doing it?
No.
Something you want to think about?
No, it's too much. That's something else I got to add to. Like, I got to plan in. I mean, we were FaceTiming, my family and stuff. We would talk FaceTime or whatever anyway. So it's not, we don't necessarily schedule and plan it. And then it's just more time I got to look decent and put on clothes and do my hair. That's too much pressure. Like, just talk to me on the phone and pretend like I look amazing, because I don't.
Oh, gosh. Well, Roundtable, I really appreciate you just giving us a little bit of levity in all of the deep stuff that is going on right now. I wish all of you safety and wellness and happiness. And hopefully one day soon we will be back in the studio together. And I'm looking forward to that. Absolutely. You guys take care, and we'll talk soon, okay?
All right.
All righty. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
And thank you for spending an hour of your life with us here at Another View. If you'd like to hear this show again or share it with a friend, please visit anotherviewradio.org and download the podcast. And we're on Facebook always, so like us. And I'm on Twitter at Barbara Ham Lee. Next week on Another View, we'll be talking about healthcare inequities during the coronavirus pandemic and those inequities' impact upon the African American community. Our theme music was composed and performed by Jay Sennett. Lisa Godley is our show producer, and Todd Washburn is our audio engineer, and Victor Bowen hung out with us today also. This is a holy time for Christians, Jews, and Muslims, and we wish you all well in all of your celebrations this weekend. Hang in there, everybody. Stay home. Keep washing your hands. Wear a mask if you must go out, and join us again next Thursday at noon for Another View.